as long as we're in this world, there's going to be battles to fight and giants to be overcome. We secondly looked at that there is a time when kings go forth to battle. The Bible specifically mentions that there's a time when kings go forth to battle. And we're going to find that there's times when we need to go forth to battle. Shakespeare once said, "Cowards die many times before their death. The valiant only taste of death but once." Why? Because when it's time for kings to go forth to battle, they're ready to do what has to be done. So we need to realize that we never know when them days will come. When we have battles to fight, when we have wars that must be waged, whether it's over the lives of our children, whether it's to keep this church going, whether it's health problems we're facing, financial problems. But when those times come, kings must go forth to battle. And then thirdly, we saw some of the reasons why kings must go forth to battle. Number one, to set the example for others. Those that are watching our lives. Maybe those that we led to the Lord. Maybe our family, our children. Secondly, and I thought this was such a good point, if we don't, someone else will get the glory that God had reserved for us. We may think we're irreplaceable, but I guarantee you, if we don't rise to the occasion when God sends opportunities our way, He'll pass it on to somebody else. He's got somebody else waiting in the wings. It's not what God wants, but somebody else is going to get the glory that should be ours. Number three, fighting life's battles keeps us strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. God isn't punishing us when we go through trials. He's trying to strengthen our faith and teach us to rely on Him as our strength. So we need to realize that when trials come, it's an opportunity to grow spiritually. And then, number four, one last reason why kings must go forth to battle, because we need fellowship. We need fellowship. David isolated himself, was left alone at the castle, got himself in a whole lot of trouble. If he would have been with his men fighting the good fight, we wouldn't even be having this discussion here today. Christians go through trials, the first thing they do is just isolate themselves, don't answer their phone, and that's not a good thing. Tonight I want to pick up on this theme and talk about number three, why kings don't go forth to battle. Some of the reasons why kings don't go forth to battle. Every situation is different, but tonight I want to give you several different reasons why they don't go forth to battle. Number one, many don't have any fight left in them. I've seen interviews with boxers, and many of them have said that when you get to the place where you no longer have a desire to train or get hit or to fight, it's time to quit. Hang up the gloves. Soldiers that have been in a lot of combat, that have seen a lot of fighting, they sometimes suffer battle fatigue. Physically, they're all right, but they ain't got no fight left in them. They don't care whether they live or die. They get to a dark place where they just don't care. And my fear is that some Christians may find themselves in that very same place. Life is often hard and full of heartache and loss. And many Christians have had lives of disappointment. As long as you're strong in God, you'll be able to weather the storms of life. But the moment you start losing hope, the moment you get discouraged and overwhelmed by life's trials, you'll stop going forth into battle as kings. A second reason why kings don't go forth to battle, they develop a quitter's mentality. The word quit shouldn't be in our vocabulary. It shouldn't be in our dictionary. We should never find ourselves saying, I quit, whatever it may be. Once someone starts quitting when it comes to life, it's not long before they develop a quitter's mentality. We would always tell our kids growing up, hey, if you sign up for something, you're going to stay with it. Whether you like it or not, you're going to stay with it. Quitting's not an option. Soon they find themselves quitting everything. They quit going to church, which is usually followed by quitting on God. It then becomes that much easier to quit a job, to quit a marriage, to give up on every aspect of life. And you'll meet people that's their life. Just constantly just leaving something, starting over, doing over. When kings stop going forth to battle, it's the first step to developing a quitter's mentality. And the only way to overcome that kind of attitude is you've got to determine in your hearts and minds that nothing or no one is going to stop you going on for the glory of God. You've got to rise above it. There's days you don't feel like going to church. There's days you don't feel spiritual. But you got to rise above it. A third reason why kings stop going forth to battle is laziness. I mentioned this morning that David was probably the closest he ever was to God when he had nothing. As a young shepherd boy, watching over his father's sheep. He was out there playing his harp, slinging rocks, talking to God. He wrote many of the Psalms as a young man. David had nothing but God. And that's all he needed. Hallelujah. When David became king, he was a shadow of the man of God he used to be. Why? Because now he had several wives taking up much of his time, several kids, an entire kingdom to rule over, and all those things will tie up much of your time. But I think the biggest factor that changed David was the luxury that a life of a king provided. As a young boy, David was used to sleeping out under the stars with just a rock or maybe a nice warm lamb for a pillow, and it didn't bother him at all. Later on in life, when he was on the run from King Saul, who was trying to kill him, David was sleeping in caves, sleeping out in the wilderness, and again, because he was close to God, it didn't bother him a whole lot. Once David became king, he got used to the finer things in life. Great meals, fine wine, soft pillows and beds, the many women that he had. Spiritually, it made him soft and caused him to lose his edge. When the time comes for kings to go forth to battle, David had no desire to rough it, living in a tent, eating lousy army food. He'd much rather stay in his house playing video games and watching his widescreen TV. So it's a factor. I mentioned this morning that we must not let the cares of this world replace our love for God. It's a serious problem that's causing a lot of Christians to stumble. They've got so many toys and gadgets, plus Redbox and Netflix and on-demand, 800 cable channels, and all those things have the potential to distract us from God. And it can stop kings from going forth to battle. Number 4, the attitude of let someone else fight the battles. There is a danger that comes from letting the enemy get inside our head. You've got to constantly guard your thoughts because the enemy's going to try to get inside your head. It's possible that the devil was telling David, listen, you fought enough battles. Let someone else fight the battles. Or maybe he convinced David that you need a rest, David. You've done enough. Take a vacation from life's battles. You deserve it. Stay home once in a while. And here's the thing. David knew what he was supposed to do, and David knew what God wanted him to do, and David knew what kings are supposed to do. This was the time when kings go forth to battle. So he knew all those things, and still he didn't go. Again, there's a danger that comes when we listen to the devil's lies. And if you listen to them long enough, after a while, he'll convince us that his lies are actually our own thoughts. The enemy will quietly, subtly start telling us, listen, life is passing you by. All you do is church, church, church. You've got no life. You deserve some time to yourself. And after a while you say, you know what? He's right. The enemy will convince us, just take a break. You're not quitting. Just take a little break from church, maybe a vacation from living for God. And we'll justify those decisions by saying, doggone it, he's right. I deserve a little break. I've done enough already. Let someone else pick up the slack. Let someone else carry the load. Let someone else fight the battles of life. David knew that his general Joab was more than capable to defeat the Ammonites, and he did. David knew he really didn't have to be there, but it was the right thing to do. It was a king's responsibility to lead his men into battle, and he didn't do it. So that's what happens. Well, somebody else will get the job done. Someone else will do it. Number 5, the last one here. Perhaps the reason why David didn't go forth to battle is that he already had other plans. We've all heard the expression, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Well, in this case, it was a matter of when the troops are away, the king's going to play. I used to think that it was just a coincidence that David happened to get up in the middle of the night. Maybe he couldn't sleep and he was walking along the rooftops, and lo and behold, he just happens to stumble upon seeing Bathsheba taking a bath. I used to say that was just probably coincidental. I now believe that either David had been told by someone, yo, David, you got to see this. About 2 o'clock in the morning, get up this Friday. You got to see this beautiful girl out there doing her thing. Really? Yeah. That it was either something like that, or perhaps on another occasion, he was looking out his window and caught a glimpse of it, but everybody was around, so he probably closed the windows and went, oh, man. So he waited for the time when kings to go forth to battle, when everyone would be away, including Bathsheba's husband, Uriah the Hittite. He waited for that moment, that time, to make his move. I think that's what probably happened. It wasn't just some coincidence. It's possible that David had already made other plans, and if it can happen to David, it can happen to any one of us. I'm talking about faithful Christians disappearing for days at a time. Where do they go? I don't know, but they ain't here. No one can get a hold of them. No one knows where they are, but rest assured, they're missing in action. They're probably up to no good. Others want to live for God, but still chase after the cares of this world. You see this down south a lot. They're in church on Sunday. They're in the honky-tonks during the rest of the week. They're living for God on Sunday and living like the devil the rest of the week. It can't really happen both ways, but that's how many are living their lives. This is one of the main problems in churches today, and it's getting harder and harder to find people you can count on. We got a business meeting tonight, the big one. We only got like 2 or 3 members here that are actually members to vote on it. So that's out the window as far as that goes. But it's disappointing to me that at a time when you're kind of counting on people to show up, they ain't here. Because so many today, and I'm not just talking about this church, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to make that kind of sacrifice, that kind of commitment. So this is what you're dealing with in this day and age. I imagine David's men on the battlefield saying, where's David? Where's David? Why is the king not here with us? And so many times as a pastor, I find myself asking the same question. Hey, where's so-and-so? Hey, I wonder what happened to so-and-so. Where's so-and-so? And it's very discouraging when you never know who will show up or who's going to get involved. I suppose it's a sign of the times, but it's something that I'll never get used to or never understand. So those are some of the possible reasons why David wasn't with his men when kings go forth to battle. Having looked at that, notice lastly the danger in kings not going forth to battle. Number 1, there will be no victory when kings stop fighting. I know the Bible says that Joab and David's army defeated the Ammonites. David showed up when all the hard fighting was over to claim the victory as king. But it was a hollow victory because David didn't do any of the fighting. Meanwhile, the real enemy that he should have been focusing on, the real enemy that he should have been fighting, was making a mess of David's life. Put another way, if David was where he was supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to be doing, he wouldn't have gotten himself into the trouble that he found himself in. David's men may have won the battle, but spiritually, David lost that war. So that's the first thing. They may have won that victory, that battle, but David lost a whole lot when he didn't go forth when kings should fight the battle. Number 2, when kings don't go forth to battle, it gets people hurt. David had a capable general in Joab. But what if Joab did conquer that city in his own name? What if Joab won the respect of the troops and then immediately turned against David and said, hey, listen, the soldiers are with me. Many coups have taken place. Many rebellions have taken place because whoever was the leader of the country was so as soft. The general of the army got the army going with him. And next thing you know, there's conflict. David's adulterous affair with Bathsheba forever hurt the legacy of his life. We all know that David was a man after God's own heart, but we also know that David, for a time, was a womanizer, a liar, and a murderer, since he lied to Bathsheba's husband and eventually had him killed in battle. So that's a part of his legacy. It's a part of who David was. Same thing with Samson. Samson's listed in the Hall of Fame of faith. Samson judged Israel faithfully 30, 40 years. Samson was the strongest man that ever lived. But a woman was able to defeat Samson, and that's a part of his legacy. It hurt his legacy. Which got me to think about this. One bad decision leads to another. One sinful act often takes a person deeper and deeper into a life of sin. It happened with David. He had an affair with Bathsheba. Then, when she was with child, he tried to get the husband drunk. Husband was more faithful than David. He wouldn't do it. When that didn't work, he gives this guy his own death wish, his own death warrant. Told Joab that when you attack, pull back from Uriah and leave Uriah out there against the enemy high and dry. He was carrying the letter that had his own death sentence and didn't know it. That's low. And though David and Bathsheba probably never spoke of her husband's death, that dark act would forever taint their marriage. It would always be in the air, even if they never talked about it. It's not a way you want to start a relationship. In an adulterous way, and then having her husband killed, and then the child dying. So, a lot of people were hurt, including David's legacy. The Bible says that our testimony is worth more than silver and gold. And it hurts me every time I see a Christian throw away his testimony. And it's tough to get it back once we lose our credibility. Something that people might know, oh yeah, I remember him. I remember when he did this. I remember when he did that. So, David was a great man of God. But what he did by not going forth to the battlefield hurts his legacy. When a Christian quits on God, it hurts not only him, but it hurts those around him. His wife, his kids who are no longer in church. I preached a message a couple months ago about that pastor that decided to renounce God and become an atheist. You think his kids have any chance of coming to know God when their dad, who was a pastor, renounces the Christian faith and declares himself to be an atheist? Or what kind of relationship his wife can have when her husband no longer wants to go to church? It may doom their souls to an eternity in hell. Well, my dad doesn't believe in God, neither do I. Family, friends, neighbors, co-workers that you've been trying to reach with the gospel will probably not be reached because that once faithful Christian threw it all away. No telling how close family members may be to getting saved. And then a Christian implodes. I knew it wasn't real. Lastly, it will affect their eternal rewards, their treasures in heaven. No telling how many eternal rewards have been lost by Christians who quit on God, who stopped fighting the good fight of faith. Probably going to be warehouses of treasures. What's in that warehouse? Man, that's the stuff you could have had if you just would have stuck with it. Man, that's stuff that I had waiting for you, that I wanted to give you. All I know is there are going to be some disappointed people in heaven when God hands out those eternal rewards and they're empty-handed. One last thing and I'm done. Our disobedience often leads to rebellion in others. As mentioned earlier, Joab defeated the Ammonites and he could have received all the glory for himself. He even told David that. He said, listen, if you don't get out of here, if I enter this city, they're going to hand me that crown and name this city after me. At that time, Joab had enough character to give the honor and glory to David as king. He had enough character to do that. He didn't have to, but he did it. Joab did the right thing, but I sense it still bothered him that he was out there fighting battles that David should have been leading. That David shows up on the scene and is given all the glory and honor that he didn't deserve. I believe a root of bitterness and jealousy may have started poisoning Joab's soul, because in David's later life, when he decided to make Solomon the next king after him, Joab turned against him and sided with another one of David's sons. And Solomon had to kill Joab because Joab turned against his father, turned against Solomon, and it was an ugly time. And it may have started right here. Our disobedience often leads to rebellion in others. David had several wives which he didn't need. He had a bunch of kids that he really wasn't taking care of, and it caused problems for him. One of his sons, Absalom, conspired against him and was able to turn the hearts of the people against David. And by the time David found out what was going on, he had to flee Jerusalem, and it almost cost him his kingdom. because he didn't handle the situation with his son Absalom the way he should have. Listen, if your heart's desire is for your kids or your spouse or your friends or your extended family to give their lives to God, which is what we all desire, then we shouldn't murmur and complain about church. Oh, there's bad days in church. I got to watch it myself that I don't get into complaining to God about this and that. Don't badmouth church members. Don't badmouth the pastor. Don't share with others church gossip. Because all those things will eventually turn off your wife, your husband that you're trying to reach. It'll turn off your kids, your neighbors, your co-workers who may have been thinking about coming out to church. Those are just some of the dangers that result from kings not going forth to battle. Let's have a word of prayer.